Joining us now is Michael Moore, a man who really doesn't need an introduction, but he is getting one. He's the host of the critically acclaimed Rumble with Michael Moore podcast. He also just launched a Substack, and he will be hosting a free screening of his film Fahrenheit 9/11 on Friday, September 10th at 9 p.m. Eastern on the platform at michaelmoore.com. That's michaelmoore.com, which you can see at the graphic right there. Michael, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me on. It's been way too long, and major props to both of you for what you do. It's much appreciated by all of us out here.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you.
So I'll start with the first question, and I'm really excited that you're here to weigh in on the fact that Biden actually stayed true to his commitment to withdraw troops from Afghanistan. Of course, that's 2 decades and $2 trillion later. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that. There's been a lot of criticism toward the Biden administration over the withdrawal, all coming from corporate media, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't understand the criticism other than there are those who have a vested interest in him failing. Now, let's just, for those who don't know, in full disclosure, I did not vote for Joe Biden in the Michigan primary. I voted for Bernie Sanders. I was out on the road with Bernie, campaigning with him, and frankly, we never saw Joe Biden anywhere out on the road. I mean, I didn't know what was going on with that campaign. And literally, New Hampshire, Iowa, wherever we were, you saw Amy Klobuchar, you saw other people who were running, but you never saw Joe Biden. And I didn't know what was going on. And of course, in the first 2 or 3 primary and caucus races, Biden was like 4th, 5th, 6th. It was what it was.
Right.
But since then, what I have seen, I did vote for him in November, and I knew Bernie. I mean, I've known Bernie since he first ran up in Burlington back in the 1990. When he said that Biden was a friend of his, he didn't mean it like a political friend. I mean, I think he meant that Biden was a friend, and they respected each other, and they spoke to each other, and what I've witnessed in these first 7 months is not a lean to the center or to the right, but to the left, to Bernie. And thing after thing that Biden has done, whether it's the child tax credit that will decrease child poverty by 50%, whether it's the latest thing with the food stamps, the first real increase in food stamps since 1962, that will take millions off the hunger rolls. You go down so many things here, and it's not that I don't have my criticisms of a number of what's happened, a number of things in the last 7 months, but item after item, I just started making this joke to people. I don't know this for a fact, but I get the sense that Biden and Bernie are like having a late night, before going to bed chat with each other, because a lot of what Biden is doing is essentially Bernie's belief system, Bernie's values, Bernie's, and Biden's careful not to call any of these things what Bernie would call them, like Medicare for all. Yet, but the truth of what he's done is much of what Bernie has been pushing for decades. And so I've been, the thing is that people are like, Mike, don't say anything good about Biden. I said, yeah, but we don't have any credibility when we criticize Biden if we don't admit when he does things right, that he does things right.
Yeah,
then we need to criticize him. People will listen to us because they know we will judge it fairly.
Yeah, that we're honest actors and we're not just going after Biden for our brands or whatever. And look, I agree with you. I mean, there have been some pretty surprising things coming from the Biden administration. I love that you mentioned the expansion of the food stamp program. I am pleased with the fact that he pulled out of Afghanistan. And he did also wind down the drone strikes quite a bit from the Trump administration. Now, of course, we also should mention that he did a drone strike that was absolutely devastating to civilians in Afghanistan recently. But on the economic side, just real quick, do you think that he's genuine in wanting to pass the reconciliation bill that includes the vast majority of his agenda items, right? Because separating the bipartisan infrastructure bill and then the reconciliation bill, which has everything that we need, I think actually puts the Democrats and his agenda at a disadvantage. What do you think?
I think it was on actually the day that we lost the Afghanistan war, on that Sunday. That night, Nancy Pelosi released a statement saying that that essentially, she didn't say it in these words because she'll never say the squad was right, but she basically said that what Alexandria and the others want, we're going to do. In other words, we are not going to pass the first infrastructure bill detached from the second one. That they've got to be passed together. Mm-hmm. The one that already has passed both houses, but has to come back to the House to reconcile the differences in the two bills, and the 3.5 trillion human infrastructure bill. And I thought, wow, and this got very little coverage in the sense that Pelosi was leaning toward what we all want. And I honestly think that that is what's going to happen. I'm not a predictor of political shenanigans in Washington, D.C., but I have the sense that Biden wants that 3.5 trillion passed. I just saw him I'm in New York right now, in Queens, on TV live, saying this, that the first infrastructure, absolutely, we need all of that, but we have to have all this other stuff too, because the other stuff has to do with climate, and we cannot ignore this. And he was very forceful about it. And I have a sense that with what's happened, especially climate-wise in these last few weeks, that this has had a very strong impact on him. And he knows that this will not be a successful term in office if at the end of the term we're still talking about climate, when, as you guys know how I feel about this, that time to talk about climate was 20 years ago, or 40 years ago when Jimmy Carter put the solar panels on the White House roof. Mm-hmm. That was the right idea. And then Reagan came in, tore them off the roof, and that was the end of that. Right. And we've gone decades now. We've lost all this time, and now we're far behind what we used to call global. We're far beyond global warming, climate change. There's no change going on. There's a catastrophe afoot. There is an extermination event underway, and this has to be attacked with such a ferociousness. And I think Biden has got it. I think in the way that I have watched him literally change, the Biden that we grew up with, that we knew, he wasn't anti-war. He wasn't wanting to fix our criminal our criminal justice system, the mass incarceration industrial complex. He wasn't for any of that. Right. And now this is what he talks about. And he not only just talks, but has started to do things. I mean, again, during the 2 weeks of the loss of this war, something else happened. He made his first step to eliminate college debt. No, you guys might have covered this, but you'd be the only ones who would cover it. He signed a thing saying that all disabled Americans who owe these student loans, who have this debt, it is now forgiven. It's gone. Now, that's not, we're talking, there's 1.6 trillion dollars of student debt that people are carrying in this country. And that disabled debt was probably in the vast hundreds of thousands, but not anywhere near what we need to deal with. But it's just another sign that he's he's put his toe in the burning water, and he likes it. It feels good.
Well,
and in that way, he needs to get our support, as opposed to, but as Anna said, if he's going to use drones and civilians are killed, we have to be the first to speak up against it, and we'll have the credibility to do so.
Yes,
because we are supportive of the good things that he does.
Yeah, so obviously context matters, facts matter, and so credit where credit is due and critique where it's due. So should be elementary, but unfortunately it oftentimes isn't. Which leads me back to the war issue here on the at the near 20th anniversary of 9/11, and I know you got a free screening of Fahrenheit 9/11 coming up on michaelmoore.com. I want to go back to that issue, Michael, because 77% of the country says the withdrawal was right, including 74% of Republicans. Trump was theoretically in favor of withdrawal. He didn't actually do it, but he was in favor of it, started that process. Biden did in fact withdraw. But yet when we turned on cable news for the last several weeks, we saw wall-to-wall pro-occupation, pro-war coverage, wall-to-wall. Whenever a dissent broke out, it became breaking news. Oh my God, James Carville disagrees with 99% of other people on cable news. Oh my God, Admiral Mullen said something sensible. It's no military leader has done that in decades, et cetera. And that became big breaking news. And then today, Lindsey Graham came back and said we need to re-invade Afghanistan. And so it appears the neoconservatives and mainstream media are the only ones left in the pro-war camp. But neoconservatives, I suppose we could understand a little bit because that's what they do, but I'd love to get your thoughts on Lindsey Graham, but also on cable news.
Well, war is very, very good for the media and for the powers that be that run our media. They were probably shocked. First of all, they couldn't figure out how quickly the Taliban had crossed Afghanistan and that this thing was ending. And it's kind of like, no, wait, what do you mean there's only 2 episodes left of Game of Thrones? No, I need more. Wait, Mrs. Maisel isn't coming back for a year? No, this is the kind of mentality, not just with the media, but with us, the public, because we become so addicted to this. And good for Biden that he didn't fall for any of it. They were already preparing their Republican Party spots for next year, how we left the Americans behind. Nobody got left behind. All right, first of all, I'm just saying, but we took 120,000 Afghan citizens out of there. That safely, amazingly, that I have to say, Cenk, maybe you know the number. I don't think we had 120,000 translators in Afghanistan. That would mean there would be 120,000 who could speak both English and Afghan. I'm just saying, I'm not, I'm glad for everybody that got out, but to still criticize and say some got left behind, how many translators were there? We got everybody out that wanted to get out. And we got all the Americans out, except for, they say there's 100 who are actually Afghan citizens who hold a dual citizenship. They're also Americans. And they want to leave still. So you know what? Biden will get them out. The same Biden that got out every single American troop, every single American citizen, everybody with a green card, and whatever of the 120,000 Afghans who could get on those planes, they all got, honest to God, I don't know what you thought, but I thought they did 770 flights in those 2 weeks. 770 flights, and not one was shot down. That means Biden and his team did a negotiation, a brilliant negotiation with, of all people, the Taliban, to not fire a single bullet at any American who's trying to get out, to let every Afghan who was there on the tarmac leave with their lives intact. Their life, their lives are gone. Their life, though, is alive. And let those planes take off and not shoot down a single one of them. And I don't know if you do you remember the photo last week of the last soldier getting on the C-130, last American? It was a General Donahue, and there's no soldiers behind him at the airport. Nobody protecting his back. So normally, I think what you're trained to do is you walk backwards onto the ramp up into the plane with your gun out, because there's nothing but the enemy there now. There's no Americans to protect you, and he doesn't do that. He walks with his back to the enemy, and just walks up the ramp onto the plane knowing he wasn't gonna get shot. How did he know he wasn't gonna get shot? Because he knew he had a commander-in-chief that knew what he was doing and skillfully negotiated terms with the enemy so that the enemy would not cause any harm to any American troop or to any American citizen or to any Afghan who was on that tarmac that wanted to leave,
Michael,
or to any of the 700 planes that left. That, you have to admit, that's not Dunkirk. That's not where 15,000 allies lost their lives. That will go down in history as the most amazing retreat of a power that lost a war. Absolutely amazing. Yes, chaos, yes. Confusion, yes. ISIS got to do their evil act, yes. But the enemy, the Taliban, the 20-year enemy, not a bullet. Everybody lives, every plane leaves, and the general just kind of walks onto the plane with his back to the enemy, knowing he wouldn't be shot. Come on, people.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.